everybody, welcome to the channel. It's Dean Wolfe, and we are interviewing Stratospheerius. I have not met these guys before, so we're all being introduced together. We've got Joe, both of you guys in the New York area. Joe is, we're going to get into what he does in the band Stratospheerius. It's really interesting to me. And then, of course, we've got Jason on drums. Hi, Jason.
Hi.
Just before we started this interview, I was informed Joe says he plays with Kansas as their violinist as well, and he plays a seven-string violin. I've never heard of such a thing, so why don't we just start right with that?
Yeah, it's a seven-string violin. It looks like a flying V, and it's made by a guy named Mark Wood, who's been making them for 30 years. And it has a chest support system, so I play in Kansas. I also play rhythm guitar, so I have both instruments strapped on me at the same time. In Stratospheerius, I just play violin, and top four strings are regular violin strings, and then it goes down to C, F, and B flat. So it goes lower than a cello range, and almost as low as an electric bass. So you could do power chords, and walk bass lines and do all kinds of things like that.
Is this your project, Joe? You're kind of the former of it, formed it?
Yeah, it was my brainchild. I started it because I wanted, when I moved to New York in the early 2000s, because I wanted a vehicle to explore the music that I love, merging progressive rock, jazz, fusion, exploring the electric violin and writing my own songs. So it was just a way to express myself, and it kind of grew and morphed over the years. The current lineup with Jason on drums, and Michelangelo Corinelli on guitar, Bill Huber on keyboards, Paul Ranieri on bass. It's the best lineup I've ever had, and we're really excited about the new album that's coming out October 11th.
Cool. October 11th, new album. Great. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Jason, how long have you been involved with Stratospheerius?
Well, I've been involved with Stratospheerius for close to maybe 7 years now, 8 years now, something like that. Um, uh, m- Joe mentioned that Mark Wood. Mark Wood is the original violinist of the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. I was working with the Trans-Siberian Orchestra about 10 years ago. Mark and I were introduced. Mark runs an orchestral rock camp every summer out in Kansas. That's where Joe and I met. And it just ended up turning out because we both teach at the camp. And it turns out that we both have very close mutual friends. Certain friends of mine that I was playing with was playing in the original version of Stratospheerius, and so on and so forth. And then it kind of merged, and now we're one big happy family.
Yeah.
Cool.
And Jason co-wrote a lot of the songs on the new record.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
we've become good writing partners too.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
tell us about this new record then.
So we were working on it on and off for 6 years. I know it's a long time, and we released a few singles on it over the years. But there's a whole other side of the record people haven't heard yet, and it's got tons of special guests on it, namely Michael Sadler from Saga, Rachel Flowers, Chloe Lowry from Trans-Siberian Orchestra, Randy McStein from Porcupine Tree. There's a long list of people that make appearances on the album, and the closing track is an epic called Chasing the Dragon, which Jason co-wrote with me, and it's a 12-minute mini rock opera. And we're really excited about it. We just released our first single from the album called Outrage Olympics. There's a video on our YouTube channel for the song. It's been getting a great response. So yeah, and it's going to be released by 7D Media, which is a label co-owned by Trey Gunn from King Crimson, which we started working with earlier this year.
Right. I have heard of that label. How did you get
And
involved with that label then?
we were connected through our friends Ann Rinaldi and Tom Palmieri, who run the Prog Festival. Um, they're good friends with Trey Gunn and AJ Chaparro, who runs the label, and they liked the record and we decided to collaborate, and it's been great so far. And people can pre-order it at 7dmedia.com, and that's the letter D, 7dmedia.com.
Yeah, I'll put links down below so everyone can check those out. Well, tell me a little about your influences, you guys. This is probably we always talk about it, but it's sort of unavoidable. Like, who are your kind of musical heroes growing up? Your favorite bands, that kind of thing. We could start with Jason.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm starting first. Okay, great.
Go for it.
Well, as a precursor, Joe and I both are schooled in music. I have a master's in classical percussion, and we both have deep backgrounds in classical music. So hence, I think the reason for a lot of the connection to progressive music. I grew up with my big three were Rush, Kansas, and Yes. And everybody in between, from Marillion to King's X to Queensryche to Dream Theater to all those bands. But I also have been schooled in jazz, anything from Chick Corea to straight ahead jazz, Miles Davis, a lot of big band stuff, that sort of thing, Afro-Cuban, Latin stuff. I teach at the Drummers Collective in New York City, and so we specialize in teaching all the very deep, detailed background of it being as well ranged as you possibly can in all different styles. So there really isn't much that I don't like. For sure, progressive music is my number one. And with Stratospheerius, you're going to hear all those influences. Everything from Kansas to Rush to Yes to fusion stuff to funk stuff to rock stuff, so on and so forth.
So my story is my parents are both classical musicians. My father was a violinist in the Cleveland Orchestra for 44 years. My mother's a classical pianist. And I grew up with classical music, but I rebelled and got really into rock and roll and later jazz. Growing up, I would say a lot of the same influences as Jason: King's X, Rush, King Crimson, Yes, Frank Zappa, Mahavishnu Orchestra. And I was kind of on two parallel roads. I was studying classical violin repertoire, playing in orchestras, but my other life was playing guitar and bass in bands and singing and writing songs. And at one point, those worlds collided, and I discovered some of the great electric violinists like Jean-Luc Ponty and Jerry Goodman and Mark Wood. So I went to college as a jazz violin major, doing my undergrad in Indiana University, and then I moved to New York to go to Manhattan School for my master's. And I always wanted to write my own music, and I just felt drawn to, just really compelled to create something new and something that I would want to hear as a fan, that merged all my favorite genres together. So that was the impetus that got me to form Stratospheerius. Yeah, and I think I never consciously thought, oh, this is progressive rock or this is jazz or whatever it is. I was just kind of doing what I love, and progressive rock fans seem to gravitate towards it, which is fine because it's a great fan base and it's such a wide category of music. People are willing to be taken on whatever journey you want to take them on. A lot of open-minded listeners, I think. Yeah.
And what about touring and performing live? You guys do a lot of that?
Well, right now I'm very busy touring with Kansas, so Stratospheerius doesn't perform that much. We're doing our big CD release party at the Williams Center. It hasn't been publicly announced yet. December 15th, we're going to play a big show at the Williams Center in Rutherford, New Jersey, with Randy McStein and David Bainbridge opening and sitting in. And we do shows throughout the year, mostly in and around New York when I'm off the road with Kansas. So for now, that's kind of what we're doing, but we'll see what happens in the future.
Now, tell me again, all the guys that are in the band. I've got you two here. Who's not here?
Well, the other guys on the recording were Michelangelo Corinali on guitar, Bill Hubauer on keyboards. People know him from his work with Neil Morse and Crack the Sky, and Paul Ranieri is playing bass on the album.
Now, you're being in the New York area. I guess you have good access to musicians there. I mean, the music scene.
Yeah.
I find it really great that you guys are involved in teaching. Speak a little about being a music teacher and what you get out of it and why you think it's important.
Yeah. Well, I went through a lot of years where I wasn't really sure if that was the direction I wanted to go in. I always taught. I've taught since I was 16 years old, and my degrees are in performance, the performance area, not in the education area. But I always did love to teach. And then when I went to get my master's, I had an assistantship where I ended up being a teacher. I actually taught more than I studied, believe it or not. I ended up really finding the side of me that was, I always wanted to teach in a certain way, but I never knew how much I was going to end up teaching. And it really opened up a lot of doors. And then as soon as I started to become a professional, that was sort of my day job. And I was performing at night and so on and so forth. When I moved back to New York, I was out in California for 10 years. When I moved back to New York, that's when I hooked up with the Collective School of Music. And then that spawned out to two other schools. I do some adjunct work at New School, and I was teaching at the University of the Arts in Philadelphia as well. And so I primarily teach at a college level for percussion and drum set majors. And it ebbs and flows. There's some times where you feel very comfortable in your teaching and you want to kind of continue this, and then there's other times like now I'm going through a period where I'm like I want to back off the teaching and I want to continue with my performance because I'm doing so much performing right now. But it's always in my heart, and it's always sort of a very big part of my life.
What other performing are you doing?
So, well, I work with Mark Wood and his band. I work on Broadway. I am a Broadway drummer. I do a lot of work with corporate bands and different type of subbing around the New York area. One of the shows that I was on, it was Rock of Ages on Broadway, and I do work with the Rock of Ages Broadway band where we get flown out to do festivals and that sort of thing. So it's kind of a combination of some localized stuff mixed with what we call fly-out dates, where you head out for the weekend and you come back.
The situation in the planet as it exists now for musicians, you guys have probably been doing music for, a couple decades or more. It's changed a lot, of course. And I get the impression too that for musicians, it's harder to eke out a regular living, a career at being a musician. So how do you guys, obviously, Joe, you're busy with Kansas, so that's a great opportunity for you. It's also an income for you. And do you wish sometimes that you'd rather just do your band, or do you enjoy all the different projects you're all involved in?
Well, before I joined Kansas, I was a freelance violinist in New York for 25 years, and I did every kind of gig under the sun. You name it, I've done it. And one of the things, and I really appreciate working with Kansas right now, and I'm going to see how long that lasts. Hopefully they decide to keep touring, and it's a great gig. But I had a lot of great times, over the years, a lot of really cool things I've been blessed to do. And one of the things I've learned as a string player, because string players are a certain breed of people, like they, the mentality in schools is you're either going to be a soloist like Joshua Bell, or join an orchestra, or play chamber music, or teach. That's it. And when I got to New York, I realized, you could build a little home recording setup and record string parts for artists all over the world. You can arrange. You can play in rock bands and folk bands, jam bands. You could play with DJs. You could play electric violin and acoustic violin. And there's all these things you should be able to do that will enable you to make a living, which a lot of people don't think are important. So I made it my mission as a teacher, to teach people, string players, all these alternative ways to make a living that are fun and enrich your life as an artist. And currently I teach at New Jersey City University multi-style strings program, which my friend Martha Mook founded 3 years ago. Met some amazing young players there who are now kicking ass, out in the world, as original artists. So it's really inspiring, and I've been traveling doing workshops and residencies in high schools and colleges for many years, through Mark Wood and on my own. So that's really very rewarding as well. Jason and I have both written books too.
Yes.
I have a book called Plugging In, and Jason has a book called The Drummer's Bible.
Yep. And I'm actually writing I'm about to release my second one any day now, actually.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
We'll talk.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, you should send me the links, and I'll put that below as well. So there's
Absolutely.
a list of links about that. That's interesting that you're getting into the publishing as well. That's really cool. You mentioned I was my ear got interested when you mentioned about a big epic piece on the new album. I guess the final song or something, 10 minute or 12 minute.
The closing, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
tell us a little like what can people expect if they haven't heard the band? Why don't you just give us a little intro what to expect on the album?
Well, I describe it as, electric violin driven melodic progressive rock. So we have a lot of songs with hooks, but we have a lot of interesting time signatures and more extended compositions and more shorter. I call it like pop prog, like Outrage Olympics is. There's some, Kansas fans I think will enjoy this music. Dream Theater fans, Rush fans, Muse fans, Yes fans, etc. The final track, it started when Jason sent me a 90-second demo of some ideas he had, and then I developed mini songs out of each little idea, and then we kept throwing the ball around and adding more parts to the song, and it turned into this monster track. And yeah, it took like 2 years to write and mix, and but we kind of went over the top with it, but it was worth it, I think.
Right.
Anything you
Yeah.
want to add to that, you can't, feel free. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when you mentioned violin, there aren't really a lot of violinists. I can think of Eddie Jobson, I guess, the UK. And actually, when you mentioned, I put this album up today. Have you heard of Nash Slash? Canadian guy.
No.
He was in a band called FM as well.
Oh, I know
FM.
FM. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was in the late 70s. Nash Slash. He played. I guess it was violin, electric violin. He was kind of a pioneer in that. Yeah, and who else was? Oh, you mentioned already.
Jerry Goodman, Hugh
Uh-huh.
and John Ponte were the
And Ponte, yeah, for sure, Ponte.
pioneers.
Yeah.
But there's been a
So,
lot of great players that maybe are lesser known but worth
mhm,
listening to, like Didier Lockwood, Michael Urbaniak, Tracy Silverman, um, Mark
mhm.
Wood, of course, and younger generation coming up. There's tons of great players now, so it's becoming more mainstream, I think.
Cool, cool. And I guess, classical music being a big part of that. What got me into classical music when I was young was just my parents having some Mozart records. And then Star Wars came along, and I got really into Star Wars soundtracks and that kind of thing. So classical music's a big thing for a lot of prog fans, I think.
It's kind of the root. That's where a lot of progressive rock comes from. Is
Yeah,
Mahler, Shostakovich, Stravinsky, and a
yeah.
lot of prog fans don't know classical music that well, and are usually fascinated to discover it.
Well, Muse is a great example. Muse, his songwriting, what's his name, the singer. He has a lot of very classical music inspired compositions where he's using, these kind of phrasings that you kind of would hear with Bach or,
Yeah.
some of the classic stuff. So that's really cool. It's creeping into music. Well, how do you guys feel about the state of the music industry right now? Unfortunately, there's a big thing going on with P. Diddy and all this. That's kind of
Mhm.
the underbelly of probably the darker, really ugly side of the music industry. I don't think there's much of that going on, honestly, in jazz and progger. We're all such geeky guys, and we're all pretty, above board, straight shooting guys. But I don't know. But what do you guys think?
Go ahead, Joe. You want to go first?
No, go ahead, man.
All
I,
right. Well, the music business is really turned into exactly what it's called. It's a business, and there isn't any balance of like passion and business anymore. It's always been a business. It's always been, certain bands or certain acts or whatever making a lot of music money and on tour. It's always been that way, but now it's become just really about the money and what's the fastest, easiest way to get stuff out there. Who could spend the most money to get their stuff played and get it out there? Everything is about a risk nowadays. Oh, if you write this part, or if you do this, it's too risky to put out. We don't want to put it. And there's a part of me that understands that, but there's a part of me that just doesn't get the fact that there's just no balance anymore. There's no passion put into the music, and there's different people controlling the industry now. It's not the same people when we were growing up, and they're the ones that are sort of the marionettes controlling what gets out to the people, that sort of thing. And there's so much, way too much entertainment involved in the music business. So all the stuff with Diddy and all these other people and the Tommy Lees of the world and that sort of thing, that becomes more of an attraction than the actual hook of the music nowadays. So we try to write really good music and look good on camera, and we'll see what happens. But we're not out there, doing some of the things that some of these crazy people are doing on the air, in the world. So we'll see. But that to me is like what's really going on right now.
Yeah, yeah.
For me, it's a two-sided answer. I don't. Can I curse on your show?
Well, we're kind of a family channel, I would
Okay,
say.
okay.
So.
I try not to pay attention to the BS, like, the stories about Diddy. I always thought he was kind of a horrible person. I could just sense it. But from my standpoint, it's easy to get cynical, as a musician. But I try not to fall into that. I just try to create beautiful things and share them with people and make good music. To me, it's about the music, and and I think in the jazz and classical world, there's an image that everybody is goody two shoes, and none of that crazy stuff happens behind the scenes. But knowing the classical music world very intimately and the jazz world as well, humans are humans, no matter what kind of music they play. Yes. There's some messed up, monstrous people in every genre. They just might cover it up well. People have their demons, But aside from that, there's a lot of genuine artists that are good people that just want to create good music and bring it out into the world. And to that end, there's not a lot of incentive to do that either, because streaming services have kind of decimated that income stream for musicians. So there's less incentive to make a record, to make an album and put it out there. But we still do it just for the love of doing it and for the reward of, having your music touch somebody. So that keeps me going, despite it's easy to get dark and negative about it, but we just keep going and try to make the most out of the situation,
Yeah, sure. I wasn't trying to sour this conversation. I just was curious what you guys thought, and I appreciate your thoughts about it. And I agree with you guys that just to put your passion in and be happy with what you're doing and be proud of what your work. I guess that's the most important thing. Whether or not anyone, how many people hear it or don't hear or whatever. Musical integrity, I think, is pretty important. Yeah, as an artist.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to checking out your new album. It's coming out on the 6th, did you say? No.
On the 11th. On the 11th. And I'll give you the website, a few websites where people can find it. 7D Media, that's letter D, 7dmedia.com. Our website is stratosband.com. That's STRATOS band.com. And my website is the letter D, violin.com, joedviolin.com. And through there, you can link to all our social media pages and stuff. Great. And Jason's website is...
Actually, my website is down right now, but you can find me on Facebook and Instagram, of course. Jason Gianni, Gianni. And you'll see. I mean, everybody knows how to use the internet. It's all like a spider web at this point. So, I did have a question for you. Well, first of all, I'm a fan of your reaction videos, so thank you for all the things you've done. In fact, I've played with Neil Morris, and I know you've done some Spock's Beard stuff and everything like that. I'm like, yes, all right.
It's one of our Jason and my favorite bands of all time, and one of the most underrated bands of all time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
Love, love,
thank you for all you've done. I don't know how your interviews work, but if you do film this and put it out there for your fans, we would love you to tag have the video, show the video, the Outrage Olympic video. I don't know if you do that, but that would be a great thing
Actually,
too.
I'll put some clips throughout the interview or something like that. That's
thank you.
cool.
Great.
Yeah.
It's an epic song, but it's not an epic. It's for what 4:50, 4 minutes and 50 seconds. Yeah, it's a normal length song. I think the entire record, the sound of the band, is sort of encapsulated in this one song.
Yeah, it's a good representation of what we're all about. And
Perfect.
there's a lot of complexity, but it could also be appreciated, on the surface from a hook level, point of view. So,
Awesome. Well, that sounds great. Perfect. Yeah, I think it'll all work out great. We'll probably talk again sometime in the future.
I hope so. Keep in touch. Again, I love your stuff.
Okay.
So
Hey, thanks a lot. Cool.
Hope you love ours. So.
Okay.
Thanks for having us. Really
All right.
appreciate it.
No problems.
Okay,
Okay.
Dean.
Take care.
Thanks, man.
See you guys later.
Take care.
Have a good
Later.
day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.